this time I'm going to ask you to step forward, and I'm going to present to you a replica of the sign that we'll unveil today. And I say to you, Andy Griffith, that we are proud of you as a North Carolinian. We're proud of you as an American, and you reflect the good-hearted decencies that make those of us proud to call North Carolina home. God bless you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Governor. Distinguished guests, Highway Department Sheriff. I got deputized this morning. I was supposed to look after the sheriff. I'm going to speak up so you can hear the best you can, and I really appreciate it. I really mean it. This is the biggest day of my life. It is. And how about that Moravian band? That was wonderful. Well, it was, well, you know, I used to wonder where the Griffith family came from. You know, was it England or Wales or Ireland or where? And I asked my grandmother where they came from, and Mammy says, oh, somewhere up here around these mountains. And this is a great opportunity to be in Mount Airy today with members of my family. My cousin Lorene, my Aunt Bertie is not here because of the rain and her age, and all the Gillies, all the early Gillies. Thank you all. And I accept this great honor on behalf of my family, my mother and father, my mother Geneva Griffith, my father Carl Lee Griffith. He was the greatest foreman and bandsaw operator any furniture factory ever had. He was a great father. I love him and still miss him. And this probably should be named the Carl Lee Griffith Parkway. He was much greater than I. He gave me my family values, my sense of humor. He gave me everything. You know, I haven't been in Mount Airy in a long time. And Emmett Forrest took me a tour of town yesterday. We went to, you know, this museum and the playhouse. And by the way, the playhouse used to be the auditorium and basketball court for Rockford Street Grammar School and the old high school. Yeah, it was. And of course, Rockford Street's gone now, and the high school's gone, but that playhouse is still there. But we went to different places. In Mount Airy, a lot of little towns have disappeared, but Mount Airy has grown into a city. I never saw anything like it. You know, I spent the night last night in the old house where I was raised. It was a thrill. It was a thrill. That house has changed. I think they call it the Yellow House now. And there's been a lot of improvements on it. When I was little, when Daddy bought it, it was he paid $800 for the house and the property. And it was an old house. The wood siding was so old it was black. It was 3 rooms, 3 little rooms, a front porch and a back porch with a toilet on the back porch. It was cold in the winter. It was cold in the winter. And sometimes when it would snow, it'd snow in the house through the cracks. And one winter we had a hard freeze. And Daddy left the spigot running in the kitchen so it wouldn't freeze. And it didn't. But the drain did. And the next morning he had about 2 inches of ice all over the kitchen floor. Oh, Mama, she couldn't fix breakfast, couldn't fix Daddy's lunch. I remember her crying and cutting that axe with an ice. Cutting the ice with an axe, excuse me. Other than that night, I slept on a cot and a straw mattress in the kitchen where there was a little warmth by the stove. And other than that, in the fireplace where my parents slept, that's the only heat there was in that house. And a little later, when I got older, I slept in that third room that didn't have any heat. And I remember standing in front of that fireplace as long as I could, getting as warm as I could, and running and getting that bed under about 10 quilts. Boy, it was a good life. The house was just barely in the town limits. And so that's why we had to be connected to the sewer system. That's why that toilet on the back porch was kind of an afterthought. And there was a black corrugated pipe that ran from that toilet to Haymore Street. And the house was built on a hill, so it had to be stilted. Well, that pipe was exposed. And I used to play on that thing. I'd walk it like a high wire, and I'd ride it like a horse, and jump across it, had a swing on it, drove my mother crazy. And Daddy was trying to improve things. Mama was after him all the time to do it. And he got some big old cement blocks, looked like they were handmade. And he put an underpinning around that house and made it a lot warmer. And then when I got a little, well, I was still little, Daddy got me and whoever else he could find and some shovels and wheelbarrows, and we dug a basement under that house and wheeled that dirt up to the front and covered that pipe and built a front yard with grass and shrubs and flowers and everything. It made it beautiful. So I was glad to see the old place again, even though it has changed. What a good time. Let me share a few memories with you of my life here in Mount Airy and some kindnesses that were given me by people. This doesn't have anything to do with kindness much. When I was in the second grade, Rockford Street used to be a concrete road, and it would crack, and the town would put tar in those cracks, and I couldn't stay out of that tar. I got to school, I had tar in my hair, all over my skin and my clothes. Of course, I got sent home, and I remember Mama crying and whipping me. She had just put new pockets in those pants. I guess that was some kindness. I never got in tar again. And when I was in the third grade, we had assembly every Friday in that same auditorium, that same place. We had assembly every Friday. And this particular Friday, all the classes were supposed to, all the homeroom, supposed to put on a program. Well, the third grade hadn't prepared anything. And so on the way home to lunch that day, I was talking to Albert McKnight, and I said, I'll get up and sing if you will. He said, okay. Well, when it came the third grade's turn, I got up to let him out. He never moved. Well, I don't know what possessed me, but I left my seat and marched up that aisle and got on the stage and put my arms behind me and sang 2 choruses, Put on Your Old Gray Bonnet. laughed, their heads rolled back, their mouths wide open. It was the first big laugh I ever got. Emmett Forrest said that was my beginning in show business. And when I was in the 4th grade, I had all the childhood sicknesses, so I missed school a lot. And I got promoted to the 5th grade. And after a couple of weeks, Miss Minnick said, Andy, I'm going to have to put you back in the 4th grade. Said, we'll tell them you wanted to spend another year with Miss Valentine. Well, I liked Miss Valentine, but not that much. But it was a good year, even with the girl that called me white trash. And interestingly enough, in those days, you didn't have junior high. You just went from 7th grade to the high school. And when the 7th grade that year was going to graduate to high school, they had 2 monitors that marched them in, and some kind teacher paired me up with that girl. I enjoyed that. I had a girlfriend in high school named Angie Marshall. Oh, yes. She was captain of the girls' basketball team. And I was 6 feet tall, so I thought I should go out for basketball. And I made 3rd string center. And one game, the varsity was so far ahead of the other team that they sent in the scrubs. And somebody threw me the ball. Lord, I don't know where it went. I must have covered up or something. And the next day, Coach Sheldon said, you're on the 5th team. Well, you know, he also taught English. And later that year, we were assigned to write an essay on anything we want. So I wrote about a rabbit hunt. Of course, I didn't kill anything, but I wrote about this rabbit hunt, and he thought it was amusing. He had me read it aloud to the class. And I got laughs. And I remember that kindness to this day. And Skipper Sims, he was a baseball coach and taught math. He taught me how to add. I remember that kindness. When I was 14, I was in 7th grade. I got a job sweeping out the high school for $6 a month. And swing music was all the rage then, kind of like rock and roll is now. And we had a Spiegel catalog with 2 pages, Dr. Friday, 2 pages of musical instruments. And I would stare at that every day, trying to figure out what instrument I would like. And I saw a movie called Birth of the Blues. And it had a wonderful man named Jack Teagarden, played trombone. And he took a slide off the trombone apart and played that with a glass over the end of the slide. And I thought that was the coolest thing I ever saw. And I ordered a trombone from Spiegel catalog for $38, reconditioned. And I paid for it with that $6 a month. Now, we didn't have a music program in our school then. There wasn't a music program. And so I had that horn for 2 months, not knowing what to do with it. I think I did peck out the old rugged cross. But one day, Daddy came home, and he had heard of a preacher up on the north end of town that taught boys how to play a horn. Well, I got on my bicycle, and I went up there. Turned out it was a man named Reverend Edward Timothy Mickey. He was the minister of the Moravian Church. And he taught boys how to play horn for the Moravian band. Well, he gave me my first lesson, and I ate it up. And he gave me lesson after lesson. I kept eating it up. And a few months after that, I played a solo in church. Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. And before it was over, he taught me how to play every horn in the church. Trumpet, E-flat alto, baritone, valve trombone, E-flat bass. It was wonderful. And when I was 16, he talked me into taking singing lessons. First, I didn't want to. I thought it was sissy. My friends would make fun of me. But I went ahead with it, and he gave me lessons. And before it was over, I sang in churches and civic clubs all over Mount Airy. And when I partly paid my way through college singing. And when I was teaching in Goldsboro, I taught music. And I had a choir, and one time I conducted a 75-voice chorus in Handel's Messiah. And during my acting career, I mostly just sang with guitar. But here at the back end of my life, I've made 2 gospel records that have been played and sold all over the world, and I won a Grammy for one of them. Thank you. Thank you. So when Daddy heard of that preacher that on the north end of town that taught boys how to play trombone, it changed my life. And one other kindness I want to tell you about. Mr. Jim, two men, Mr. Jim Yoakley, who owned the factory where my father ran the bandsaw, and Mr. Robert Smith, a fine Christian man. They loaned me $1,000 to go into show business. And that kindness was given me 50 years ago and led to my career. And I cannot be more thankful. Let me just tell you how the old Andy Griffith Show and the town of Mayberry came to be. In 1958, that's ancient history, isn't it? I was on Broadway in a show called Destry. It was based after that old Jimmy Stewart movie, Destry Rides Again. I'd been on Broadway with No Time for Sergeants, and I'd made 3 movies, Facing the Crowd, No Time for Sergeants, and Onion Head. And Facing the Crowd wasn't too successful, No Time for Sergeants, and then Onion Head was a real dumper. And now I was on Broadway with Destry, and it didn't get good reviews. And we were open and running, but we wasn't doing much business. They put us on what they call twofers. That's 2 tickets for the price of 1. And on Thanksgiving and matinee, there's a sign on the road that says, matinee today. Well, I went to see Mr. Abe Lastfogel. He was president of the William Morris Agency. I said, Mr. Lastfogel, I've struck out in movies and theater, and I don't want to go back to nightclub. Maybe I should try television. Well, I didn't know that was going to lead to a great 40 years. But he sent a man to see me named Sheldon Leonard, producer, director. And Sheldon told me his idea for a show, and I didn't like the idea, but I liked him. So I thought about it a while and asked him to come back to New York again, and he came to the theater. And he told me his idea again. I still didn't like the idea, but I liked him. And I decided to go with it. Well, in January 1959, I had a week off from Destry, and I went to California, and I shot the pilot for that show. It was a spin-off, Danny Thomas. And what I was to be was sheriff of this little town called Mayberry, justice of the peace, editor of the paper, and tell funny stories about the people in Mayberry. Those are the things I didn't like about it. And I got rid of them as soon as I could. But it had Frances Bobbier that later played Aunt Bee. She was playing a lady who was paying rent on a tuxedo that her husband was buried in. And it had Ronnie Howard, who played Opie. He was 5 at the time. And we got big laughs. The idea was that I caught Danny Thomas speeding, and I gave him a ticket, and he didn't want to pay it, and that was the story. But we got big laughs, and the show sold to CBS and General Foods. And when the pilot was on the air, Don Knotts called me and said, "Don't you need a deputy?" That changed the whole course of everything. Instead of me telling funny stories about the people in Mayberry, I realized the stories should be constructed so that Don was funny and I played straight to him. And as other comedic characters emerged, Floyd the Barber, Otis the Town Drunk, Ernest T. Bass, Goober, Gomer, the Darling Family, Howard Sprague. Sometimes I played straight for Aunt Bee and Opie and Helen Crump. And so we did some sweet stories and some funny stories. And the friendly town of Mayberry emerged. And at first, Sheldon Leonard wanted it to be just somewhere in the South. But I wanted it to be in the Old North State. So I started using real names of real towns: Charlotte, Asheville, Raleigh, Siler City. Of course, we had Mount Pilot. You know where that name came from. Oh, I didn't say where the friendly town of Mayberry emerged, where everybody liked one another and all problems were solved in half an hour. And I started using names of people that I know around here. My cousin Ibn Moore, Garnet Steele, Emmett Forrest, Clint Thacker, J.T. Palmer. And just the other day I saw a show with Bannertown, Bannertown in it. And Snappy Lunch. I saw Snappy Lunch yesterday. By the way, I've never had a pork chop sandwich in my life. But what it was, when Mama had something else to do and couldn't tend to me, she'd give me a quarter, and I'd go to movies for a dime, and go to Snappy Lunch and have a hot dog for a dime and a bottle of pop. And that's how Snappy Lunch got in my mind and wound up in Mayberry. And people started saying that Mayberry was based on Mount Airy. It sure sounds like it, doesn't it? Maybe a little Chapel Hill and Raleigh and Manteo thrown in. I'm very happy with the success that you've had with Mayberry, with Mayberry Days and all of that, and I'm especially proud of Tanya Reese and the Surrey County Arts Council. Anytime performing arts can thrive, it benefits the entire community. So keep doing shows. Keep doing shows. I'm proud to be from the great state of North Carolina. I'm proud to be from Mount Airy. I think of you often, and I won't be such a stranger from here out. And again, the Griffiths, from somewhere up here in this mountain, thank you for this great honor, and thank you for allowing me to share some good things with you. God bless you.